All right, welcome back, guys. So it's RacerX. I just want to take a minute and thank you guys for subscribing to my channel, or for those of you that are new to the channel, thank you for tuning in. I do want to take just a couple of minutes and discuss what I've had several requests for lately, which are how I actually set up my Hellcat. And for those of you that don't know, it's a 1,000 horsepower Bravo package Charger Hellcat. Had a lot of passes on it, so I'm pretty experienced with the car. And I'd like to share some of that knowledge with you guys in terms of not only how do I set my car up, different safety equipment, the process for actually, putting your car down through the track, everything from the burnout all the way through, all the way through the traps, and then kind of back again. So I just want to walk you guys through kind of what to do with everybody, kind of getting Hellcats and 392 cars and scat packs and all that kind of stuff. A lot of guys are learning how to drag race or want to know how to drag race. So hopefully this video will help you. Let me know in the comment section below if you do have any additional questions about what I covered. Stay tuned. First thing, guys, before you ever go out to the track, it's very important that you kind of take a good look at your car and make sure that everything on the car looks right. That's anything from, obviously, like, checking the oil, guys. Make sure you've got plenty of oil. You should always have relatively new oil in the car, regardless of your power level. My vehicle's equipped with a catch can, which actually will grab some of the oil that's coming through that could potentially get into the intake. And so I actually empty this every time before I go out to the track, guys. And there are several other things. You want to check your air filter to make sure it's not clogged. Certainly your tire setup is paramount. Obviously, this is not set up for racing. I do have my my front runners, which are here. And I'm going to give you a couple little tips here, guys. So tip number one, whether you're running front runners or you're running your normal street tires, which if you're a relatively new racer, probably you're going to be running your normal street tires. Nothing wrong with that, guys. So a couple of tips I have for you. Make sure that you put a fair amount of air in the front of those tires, really for as much as the tire safely calls for. The more air you put in the tire, the less rolling resistance the tire is going to have. So I actually will pump my street tires. If I ever run with street tires on, I usually pump them up to like 50, 51 pounds, even though it says it maybe will hold 45 or 48 or whatever. I run like 50, 51 pounds in the front tires. Obviously, guys, as soon as you're done running, take them back down to a normal amount of air. In these, I think they call for as much as like 38 or something. I run like 42 pounds in these, guys, when I'm at the track. Tire pressures are very, very important, so make sure you're keeping track of what's going on with your tire pressure and adjust accordingly. I want to talk about rear tire setup. I obviously run a radial tire, a Mickey Thompson ET Street R in the back of mine. That's a 17-inch tire. Now, if you're new to drag racing, you may just be running a normal 20-inch tire. I do highly recommend that you get a drag radial. If you're running a normal street tire at the track, guys, you will spin. It's so hard to hook up. Even with like a 392 or a scat pack car, guys, good luck hooking up a street tire at the track. I mean, you're really pouring the coals to it. You want to at least get yourself a nice little drag radial. And then what I recommend, especially for the Hellcat, guys, I do recommend that you get a drive shaft, because if you're launching that hard with that much power, any sort of wheel hop or whatever happens, you may end up snapping your rear axle or a drive shaft or something like that. But guys, tire pressure is really important. So I run these. I typically start between 20 and 22 pounds at the track. Now, if you're new, even with a regular 20-inch tall wheel, guys, I would highly recommend, like, say, for example, a Nitto NT555R, which is a great little drag radial, especially for you guys starting out. Go ahead and start at about 20 pounds at the track. You want to run as much air pressure in the tire that that the track will hold. So you don't want to take too much out because you're kind of losing some mile an hour. So typically the more pressure you have in the wheel, the more mile an hour your car is going to make, and it will help you in the end. However, you don't take enough out, oftentimes you spin. So it's finding that happy medium. Like I said, for me guys, with this particular tire setup and my power level at a sticky track, I'll usually start with about 22. For a less sticky track, sometimes I'll go down all the way to about 18, but I typically try and stay in that range. And then once again guys, when you're done at the track, make sure you take your tire pressures back up to the optimum amount of pressure that they're supposed to run. Okay, so another little tip here guys I want to sort of kind of put out there. If you're running a regular 93 octane, say your car's not even tuned, you're probably okay going with normal 93 as long as you think it's good quality 93. If you have a tune on your car guys and you're still running say 93 octane, one thing that I used to do when I ran just a 285 pulley on my car is I used to splash maybe 2 gallons of MS 104, which is it's an unleaded fuel. I would not recommend running a leaded fuel. I ran leaded fuel in mine and it tore up my spark plugs. I don't recommend it, guys. I mean, certain guys will do it. I don't recommend it. But if you can get like an MS 104, MS 109, an unleaded fuel, race fuel, what that will do is that will keep your car, just splash it in the tank. I mean, if you're running a half tank of fuel, go ahead and put that fuel in there, and what it will do is it will raise your octane a little bit to keep your car from pulling timing. It will not add power to your car guys, but what it will do is it will allow your car to make the power that it's capable of, at least at that point in time. So it's just going to keep it from pulling timing. So guys, if you do have the ability to get some race fuel, some unleaded race fuel, just a couple of gallons in about a half tank of 93 does great. I'm running E85 now, so I don't necessarily need to do that. My E85 station has really good quality fuel, so I've not really had any issue with fuel quality. But it is important that you run good quality fuel, guys, because your car will pull timing, and subsequently your car it'll be slower. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but if you're going to drag race, guys, you need to invest in a helmet. You don't necessarily have to go with a fireproof jacket, but very minimum a helmet. I do recommend a fireproof jacket, guys, just to be safe. You never know what can happen. Even if you're a novice, you're not running a lot of power, whatever it may be, you really can't be too safe. I've seen a lot of accidents on the track, guys. So very minimum, if you're not running, 5-point harnesses, or you don't necessarily need a Hans device or, all that. But guys, get yourself a helmet.
Bet she gives great helmet.
And just spend a little bit of money on a jacket to run at very minimum. I do recommend those two things. Very minimum a helmet. A lot of tracks won't even let you run without those. So definitely something to get. So now I've given you a couple of tips on just initial sort of setup. I do want to kind of run through just a couple of real quick tips in terms of when you're actually at the track. So for example, when you get done making a run, guys, at least what I do is I always make sure whenever I've stopped that I raise the hood. A lot of guys don't do that, but I think it's really important. These Hellcats especially, but even on 392 cars, guys, if you raise the hood, believe it or not, your air intake temperatures will come way down. And typically the hotter your engine is, guys, the more power it's going to rob. So you want to make sure you keep your engine pretty much as cool as possible. And one of the best ways you can do that is every time you can cut off your motor, go ahead and cut your motor off. And then also, go ahead and lift your hood, because your car, it cools much more effectively when your hood is up. So between runs, guys, even all the way up until you're getting ready to kind of pull in to the box, don't be afraid to kind of keep your hood up to keep your engine as cool as possible, because it's going to make more power, and typically it's going to, you're going to make a little bit better run with the engine running more efficiently. Another quick little tip for you guys: if you're running front runners, you're fine to pull directly through the water box. If you're running street tires in the front, see if you can pull around the water and then back into the water box, because when you pull normal street tires through the water box, it tends to pull water up the track, and oftentimes it leaves water not only under your vehicle but certainly under your back tires, and it's kind of bad news, guys. So front tires, if they're street tires, pull around the water box and back in. That way it keeps the water off your front tires and it'll allow you to grab the track a little bit better. I also want to show you a little clip of a normal burnout that I do so that you guys can kind of get a sense of sort of the cadence there. But essentially, I don't pull around because I do run front runner, so I pull directly through. I stop in the water box, but I only just barely turn the tire. So basically, I just keep my foot sort of on the brake, and then I just kind of push down a little bit with the accelerator, just enough to spin them, just barely. Do not do your burnout in the water box, guys. Pull up about maybe 5-6 feet out of the water box, and that's where you'll perform your burnout. And I'll show you that process. You through how to set up your car to be kind of most efficient at the track. So the way that I always do it, guys, is obviously you push on your SRT button down here, assuming you're driving an SRT, and you'll get this screen. So obviously default, you're going to get the normal, the normal power modes and stuff here. So I always go to custom, okay? And then once I'm in custom, you can go into these modes and you can actually set things up. Now the way that I set my car up, guys, is I go in here, obviously I leave the power at 700. We know that my car makes more than that, but you want to leave the power at maximum. Transmission is the only thing that I change on mine, guys. You can leave your paddles on. I go ahead and put the transmission in track. The traction doesn't matter because you'll turn your traction control off, which I'll show you. And in suspension, guys, I put the suspension in street mode, which is actually really important. Guys, you want the vehicle to transfer weight. Do not put it in track or sport mode for drag racing. So those are my tips for you on how to set up your vehicle, to run down through the quarter mile or the 1/8 mile. Also, guys, you want to pay very close attention to your air intake temperatures. Kind of like what I was telling you before, the reason we've got the hood up, as you can see. You want to make sure you go into your SRT pages, which I'll show you here. Click on SRT pages there. And then you can jump into, let's see here. I'm sorry, it's going to make me start. There we go. Bear with me here. Okay. So when you go into your gauges number 2 right here, there you go. So pay attention to your air intake temperature here and your IC coolant temp here. Now, I will tell you guys, I have a killer chiller on my car. So when I'm done making a pass, the very first thing I do is blast the air conditioner, and I can actually watch these IC coolant temps fall. And it's really amazing, guys. But typically, the higher these two numbers, especially this one, the more it's going to rob power. So just keep that in mind, guys. So on gauges 2, you can actually, check that. Obviously on your gauges 1, you get some other things. You can pay very close attention to your transmission temp too. The Hellcat does like a little bit of temperature in the transmission. So, as long as you're not up here kind of on the back half, you're okay. As long as your transmission is cooling effectively, you should be fine. But, for some reason my car runs better when it has a little bit of temperature in the transmission. So another little tip there. And then of course your timers here, guys, this is actually a really cool little thing. And I can run through my timers with you guys, if it'll do it. It's not going to do it. There we go. And so for example, you can always kind of look up. This thing's actually pretty accurate, guys. Like you can go to your best, and it'll show you kind of what you've done on your best. And then of course you can go to your last, and it'll tell you kind of what you did. They'll hand you a slip at the end, but definitely something that's kind of a neat little tool if you're running an SRT car. Okay, so on your burnout, as I mentioned, you were in second gear. You want to modulate the throttle basically between 3,000 and 6,000 RPM, and basically for about 4 seconds, and then you want to gently let off on the brake until you come to until you kind of roll out, and then you want to stop before you get to the tree. I recommend trying to stop before you get to the tree. Some people like to roll past it. That's just what I like to do. And then once you get ready to stage, guys, basically we're going to say that we're on a pro tree, and most of you guys, I would recommend at first starting out on a regular tree, but you can do this technique for both pro and a regular full tree. Basically, as you roll up, you're going to roll up and try and light the first bulb. Roll slowly until you get up to the first bulb and light it and come to a hard stop. Now, left foot on the brake. And guys, I highly recommend that you give your car RPM. I've tried flashing the converter and leaving off of idle. My car is not as fast leaving off of idle as it is with RPM. So that's another little tip for you guys. My car likes RPM. I usually launch about 2,000 RPM, but when I go to bump in, and this is a technique that I've worked on and I've practiced, and I want to show you. So you're gonna pick up RPM to about 1,500 like that, okay? Right there, you're gonna lift up on the brake just a little bit with your left foot till you light the second bulb, like this. The second bulb is lit. You want to try and keep your RPM up. Go up to 2,000 right there. Wait for the flash, and then you're gone. So you guys, once you can keep your RPM up if you bump in like that. So that's just a little technique. It does take practice, guys. It took me a while to get good at it, but what that does is that allows you to either bump in first or second. And be effective. So that's just something I want to kind of put out there. Once again, you're going to build it to 1,500 RPM like so. Go ahead and lift your left foot just enough to get the car to roll forward and light the second bulb. Back on the brakes, up with the RPM to 2,000, and then let her go. Anything more than 2,000, you're probably going to push through the brakes, which I've done. So guys, that's basically what you do. And then it's hammer down to the floor, assuming that the car is not spinning.
Now that's how you're supposed to drive. From now on, that's how you drive.
Once you've actually completed your pass, once you feel the car kind of hook in, guys, you can go to the floor. You don't feel the car moving or spinning, anything like that. You can go ahead and, once you complete your pass, when you go to slow down, I actually recommend, I don't normally give it just firm pressure all the way down. I usually will kind of pump the brake a little bit and let it rest, pump the brake and let it rest, just to pull some stress off the brakes. I think that always helps. They don't get quite so hot, especially as big and heavy as these Hellcats are. That's my technique for slowing down. I also have a couple other suggestions. As soon as you get done running, go raise the hood like we talked about. Get your car cooled down so you can make another pass. If you have a killer chiller, obviously turn your AC full blast like I do. It'll cool your car down much faster. But those are a couple other techniques that I have. And then also, guys, if you're in the right-hand lane or the left-hand lane, whichever lane at the very end, whichever way you turn, be cognizant of the guy in the other lane to make sure you don't hit him. If you're way out in front and you have to turn left and the guy's over there on the left lane, it's okay. But just make sure you're really aware of where the guy you're racing is. Guys have actually collided at the end of the track. So just be aware of where they are, and kind of don't be afraid to just sort of signal or whatever to let the guy know you're coming over. It's just common courtesy with racing. So after you've made your pass, you'll pull up. There'll be a little stand there where they'll typically give you your time slip, and then of course you'll drive back to the pits, guys. So it's that easy. I do recommend that you let your car cool down if possible, for a minimum of 45 minutes between runs, because you want your car to perform the way that it's capable of. If you hot lap your car, now mine's a little different. I can hot lap mine with some consistency because of the killer chiller. If you don't have one, get into the pits, raise the hood, let the car cool down for a little while before going up and doing it again. Just little things like that, guys, make a big difference in how consistent your car is going to run and how fast it's going to run. So that's my little summary on how to drag race a Hellcat or 392 car, guys. Hopefully you found it helpful. Please let me know if you have questions. Until next time, RacerX.